In this video, I return to my humble beginnings, which involves spending $3,000-ish on home theater stuff and making a video about that same stuff. Don't steal my secret success strategy. Anyway, since the systems I really want to review are playing super duper hard to get, though I got this one on lock, and this one coming, my hands were forced to look back and fulfill the 2024 prophecy, where I review all the systems I highlighted in these CES videos. That's right, I never got around to reviewing the flagship 2024 LG S95TR, the follow-up to the 2022 LG S95QR. Now, I wasn't born in a thicket. I'm aware that certain Korean soundbars get more attention than others. You know, and it's not just Samsung's form-fitting outfits. One scrappy upstart audio reviewer released these thumbnails about the two competitors back in 2022. The gulf is not as wide as these thumbnails so subtly suggest, in my extremely humble opinion, but I wholeheartedly agree the 2022 Samsung Q990B won that particular showdown. Yes, my opinion varies slightly from Andrew's, and I said it on the internet. Write your address in the comments so I can send you some pearls to clutch. Well, anyway, the S95QR is a last-gen bar, so we're going to give the 2024 S95TR a fresh new look. I was hoping that there would have been some updates by this point. It seems not, so there are no new features since the initial release, though it's possible there have been some optimizations on the manufacturing line. Now, you might be thinking the 2024 S95TR does not cost $3,000. True. I picked it up for $1,500, which is what the Q990D is retailing for in the US at the time of this video. But you exceed $3,000 when you also buy a 65-inch LG C4 OLED, so you can delight your viewers by demoing LG's WOW TV soundbar integration features. Why not wait for the C5 or buy the G4? Because it's going into a kid's watching YouTube / mommy watching her very Chinese shows while eating very Chinese chips when mommy needs her alone time room. It's none of your business. Let's sink in. Design and build. You know, the bar's costume change to dark gray matte is superficial, but it's the best kind of superficial, as it looks much sleeker and makes me feel slick and fresh when it passes my gaze. It lost its angled sides, which I think were technically classified as funky. The bar figured out that pretending to be metal when you're plastic is kind of lame, so it dispensed with the faux metal graining. The top left and right grille went from a circle to a fade-in, simplifying the look and giving the middle circle grille the honor of being the sole visual accent. But most importantly, the ports, they point straight back, making it easy enough for normal people to access. The S95QR had this deep, narrow, off-to-the-side insanity that was built just perfect to bend your cables a sharp 90 degrees. That made you wonder just how long they could last in that position. More good news. The fabric grille is no more, micro-punctured plastic instead. The rest of the components, I believe, are unchanged externally, aside from possibly being darker to match the bar. The rear speakers still have that home button icon shape if looking at them topologically. Fabric wraps almost all around the perimeter except the back. They should have adopted the same plastic grille as the bar. That's an easy one. The rear speakers have two front sides on a very wide angle, so the sound from the rear and adjacent rear surround channel are firing in a more similar direction than, say, the front and side arrangement on the Q990's rear speakers. As you can see, the rear speakers, unlike the bar, are not ready to give up their fake metal identity. The top shares the circular grille motif with the bar. The sub design is hard-coated MDF. It sits in portrait mode. It's dark gray like the bar with a circular cloth grille. It's firmly stuck in 2020 with a DGAF attitude. The system build quality is fine, middle of the pack, not gonna evoke strong emotions in either direction. Driver array. Well, it's a 9.1.5 channel system. 5, you say? Yes, you should say that. We'll get to it. The S95TR, like the 22QR, is a 17-driver, 810-watt system. There are 10 drivers and 2 passive radiators on the bar, which seems like a lot of drivers for a speaker, but is somewhat sparse for a flagship soundbar. This thing. There are 3 drivers in each of the rear speakers, so 6 in total back there, and 1 woofer in the one and only one sub module. The bar is a 5.0.3 channel speaker with a left, center, and right channel, along with left and right surround channels on the sides. You got the requisite left and right upward firing channels, and well, that middle upward firing driver is still not practically a full-fledged height channel, even if it technically holds that status, but rather it's a center channel driver angled upward that is advertised as making the voice clearer and more synced or in tune with on-screen action. Just gonna throw this out there to manufacturers. In your specification, tell us how many tweeters and woofers you have and where they're located on the bar. Don't make this so hard on the discerning customer. I texted customer service to fulfill my masochistic tendencies, and after asking how many tweeters and woofers there are, I was told that there is 1 soundbar, 1 rear speaker, and 2 woofers. Ever feel like the universe is made of this vibe? Sound adjustments. A decent number of them. Top line, an updated AI room calibration function. I recommend taking the case off and even just putting the phone on a stand in your favorite spot. I found it can be finicky and complain about the sub and rear speaker placement. It keeps thinking there's an obstruction blocking the sound, so you'll have to play with that. After a relatively speedy calibration, once it starts working, there is a handy before and after sound sample, so you can decide if the calibration was an improvement and whether you want to keep it. It's going to do things like tune the rear speaker volume to meet the room size and accommodate to where you like to sit, but it may not be all that noticeable. There are 8 very noticeable sound modes. I'll comment on a few. AI Sound Pro, I'd say, is the best balance of fireworks and restraint. Standard, a flat profile. Cinema, it blows out atmospherics and vocals, widens the soundstage. Clear Voice Pro keeps voice the same and lowers everything else. There's sports, music, game, and last but not least, Bass Blast. There's a 3-band EQ, manual adjuster for bass, mid, and treble, night mode and dynamic range control for night listening. You got 7 channel level adjusters, so sub, center, and center is an important one for speech that is not always included. Front overhead, front side, rear speaker ear level, and rear height. So yes, a fair number of levers and buttons to play with to find your best sound. Controls, bar, remote, and app. The trifecta. The bar has 6 capacitive buttons, power, source, volume up, down, Bluetooth, and a shortcut to the Wi-Fi input. The remote is of middling, maybe upper middling build quality and has very strong LG vibes on it. The button's purposes is fairly obvious, except this one, which will disclose the audio format. But what you may not be expecting when you push the settings buttons is the full force of a wacky multimodal display, consisting of a vertical stack of single LEDs signifying levels and sound states, source, coupled with a nice lady explaining what you're adjusting as you push buttons and peruse around on the D-pad. Someone at LG got a patent and use award for this very weird display. You can turn voice and the visual display off, but the visual display will always show for several seconds after you fiddle with a setting. The app is Think, LG's version of SmartThings. Earlier this decade, they were building one-offs for soundbars, so glad they're getting more serious about the ecosystem. Some app highlights: it's responsive because it runs over the network. It gives you the important stuff on the front page, lets you know if everything is connected. You can quickly change inputs. You have quick access to sound settings, and there's a link to the TV remote if you have an LG TV. All the lesser used settings are tucked away, but there's a decent chance you can find what you need. Codec Support. LG's not going to get pantsed and mocked in this category. They did the safe thing and continued to support all the Dolbys, DTSs, and LPCMs along with IMAX Enhanced, which is part codec on the DTS side and supported pass-through with the expanded taller aspect ratio. Ports. Remember when I talked about getting pantsed and mocked in the last section? Okay, it's not quite that bad, but it's a low-level effort relative to the rest of the feature set. Ratings.com reports that the TR supports 4K 120 and VRR, but at 8-bit, not 10-bit RGB. So you're not going to get the full 1.07 billion color splash from your 4K Blu-rays that support 10-bit RGB. Anyway, Dolby Vision, check. HDR10, check. 10 plus, nay. No analog inputs or Ethernet port, which could be a big deal if you want a hardcore, solid network connection, which takes us to wireless connectivity. Bluetooth, AirPlay 2, and Chromecast. That's a trifecta. In addition, you can control the soundbar with a third-party Alexa or Google Voice device, and while you wait for these voice services to queue up your music, you can play with Spotify and Tidal Connect. Okay, let's talk about LG's WOW feature suite because, quite frankly, I think all the incentives of pairing a new LG soundbar with a new LG TV is where LG needs to really shimmer and sparkle to sway LG customers from other popular models like the Arc Ultra, Bose Smart Ultra, and most specifically, the Samsung Q990BCDF Ella Magella. There are 3 WOW feature categories. Do we really have 3 trifectas? To get all of the WOW features, you'll need a soundbar that's no older than 2022 and a TV that's no older than 2023. Okay, WOW features from least to most impactful. Number 1, the WOW interface. It seems like a lot of hoopla for essentially the ability to change the soundbar sound mode on the TV. One, I think, obvious but nice to confirm part of WOW is that the TV and soundbar will adopt the same sound settings, so no need to go back and forth to sync manually. Think of the TV as the 5th speaker in the soundbar system. Number 2, WOWcast, the option to kill the HDMI cable and get your Atmos and DTS:X wirelessly with no lag or loss in audio quality. Samsung has offered this feature since 2022, but Samsung's execution on this from my multiple experiences has been unreliable. You can get a hiccup easily once every few minutes. So if an extra wire between the soundbar and TV is a problem and getting rid of the wire would solve all of the logistic aesthetic living room issues you have, ever had, or will have, WOWcast working reliably would be a nifty flex. I'll discuss in the sound quality chapter. Orchestras are not symphonies. Orchestras play symphonies. Symphony orchestras are merely orchestras equipped to play symphonies. So yes, WOW Orchestra is completely different than Samsung's Q Symphony. Anyway, WOW Orchestra, which is exactly like Q Symphony, uses the TV speakers to make the front sound more immersive. The LG C4 by itself is a 40-watt 2.2 channel audio system with 2 woofers and 2 subs. The G4 is a 60-watt 4.2, which I believe is LG's max offering. Samsung takes this significantly further, maxing out at a 90-watt 6.2.4 on their flagship QN900D model. Also of note, Samsung has expanded the Q Symphony ecosystem to the music frames, enabling TV, soundbar, and music frames to all play as a unit. LG WOW Orchestra is still just TV and soundbar. I will assess if WOW Orchestra lives up to its namesake in the sound quality section. Sound quality. Stick with me, it's a bit of a roller coaster ride. I'll start with a compliment. I liked the tone. The tone and profile came across as pleasant, didn't seem to veer too far in any one extreme to forcefully or heavy-handedly emphasize dramatic moments, except in cinema mode. Okay, gonna get a little rougher with it. Playing streaming content, I thought, this is coming across very plainly as 3 separate speakers and a sub. They're not conflicting with each other, but the Atmos content, which is what I listen to 90% of the time, lacked critical glue and offered something far from a continuous bubble. The bar's soundstage is mediocre, and the surrounds most of the time came across as a bit understated, especially given their size. Missing some critical presence even when the levels were turned higher than would normally be advised. An example, Sonic 3. I gotta listen and be dead at the same time much of the time. I could turn the volume near 100% after the kid left, and well, it's much louder than I would want, but not excruciating. With the Q990 series and the Dragon, all the way up is a hospital trip. You can use a lot more of the volume range with the TR, which is nice, but if you're seeking a singular, muscular, aggressive sound, this is not the bar you're looking for. The height effects with streaming content were nothing to write home about. You get them, but I was unable to find the special moments to share with you. The bass module, it's not gonna sell the system, and while again it's not generally offensive, the crossover with the bar was not as seamless as I wanted. I would also sometimes hear moments of light distortion when the low tones were called on. Bass also came across as more localized than I would have wished. There is some improvement in all these areas when I chose AI sound mode. Cinema mode widens the soundstage dramatically, so it offers an immediate adrenaline hit, but then you hear the vocals as overbearing, and there's an uncomfortable sound severity that made me want to switch back to AI sound mode rather quickly. I often mention that if you really want to take advantage of your system, pop in a Blu-ray. This felt particularly true with the S95TR, like it was made specifically for Blu-rays. I popped in the Gladiator 2 Blu-ray, wish it lived up to the legacy of Gladiator 1, but that was unlikely. The movie had some charms, but most importantly, in this case, it had a compelling 3D audio soundtrack. Very quickly, I noticed a delightful distinction from the flat streaming sound. In the opening battle scene, the soundscape came across as more coherent, more continuous, fabric-like, less speaker to speaker. The atmospherics started to appear, interjecting some fresh air, energy, a drive, a sense of purpose into the sound that didn't come across as gimmicky as with cinema mode. The front sounded significantly wider. I started hearing sound objects more regularly and more clearly in non-speaker locations, which is what you're listening for. Birds over the ocean were given multiple elevations. The ocean sounded encompassing as though you were in the middle of it. The waves sounded like they were actually going up and down, ebbing and flowing. The sub did a better job of melding with the ensemble, and the distortion attenuated. The directional effects from arrows and catapults, well, not catapults, but the stuff you put in them and light on fire, whatever that stuff is. I mean, I've seen both Gladiators, but I wouldn't officially call myself an historian. Anyway, it's all far more engaging and cinematic. A consummate and delightful transformation when switching to Blu-ray for just about all movies I've tested for which I have access to streaming and physical versions. Lots of compliments here, but is the Blu-ray sound I described remarkable amongst the biggest names? Unfortunately, no, but it gets to that point where your normie friends are gonna say, whoa, what soundbar is that? And then you tell them, and they say, oh, okay, cool, and no one talks for 5 seconds. Music. It failed to enchant me. I had a bit of trouble finding the vibe. The front sound was not separating as much as I hoped, and the back speaker's contribution was underwhelming. A somewhat disjointed experience. HDMI led to better results, but didn't really save the day like it has on other systems. Maybe I need more Blu-ray music, or maybe it's better with WOW Orchestra, so let's dig into that. Top level, yes, it's a boost. Not a blow your mind, you'll never be the same contribution, but way more impactful than I was expecting, as it didn't just add to the total volume, but delightfully emphasized the kinds of things you want from a modern movie soundtrack. Like soundscape, the TV and bar working together is going to give the front atmospherics a bit more space in both the vertical and horizontal directions. Say you got a helicopter, it's as though it has more room to move around. The sound effects are augmented. The accents and dramatic booms just sound larger, like physically larger. Motion, something as simple as a vehicle turning left, sounded more lifelike. With height effects, that waterfall's downward motion is going to be more convincing. WOW Orchestra is a no-brainer to enable if you have the requisite TV, and it's easy to verify that WOW Orchestra is happening as it's plastered everywhere. So how can you max the S95TR sound? First off, I don't think this is a system optimized for very large rooms like the one behind me. It's going to sound more coherent if every component isn't 10 feet apart from each other. I noticed an improvement when I moved the soundbar closer to me and the rears. Assuming you've maximized the positioning given your constraints.
And not bad. Ooh, we're getting really close here.
You got WOW Orchestra on with a quality, time-tested soundtrack via Blu-ray. The goods listed here really do stack up to something of note. It's worlds apart from, say, a mediocre soundtrack streaming movies without WOW Orchestra. Putting all the pieces together, I'd say the 3D effects really started to impress me. Surprisingly strong instances of sounds being placed where they should be regardless of speaker position. In this scene where the Romans were bringing the sail down because it got too windy, I could hear it unmistakably moving and flapping up high to my left near the midpoint of the soundbar and rear left speaker. It's going to be a significant loss if they stop making Blu-rays because all of you people not watching my videos never buy them. Wowcast. To set up, go to Settings, find Sound Out, and scroll over to the one that says Wowcast. Select Device List and the S95TR should show up. Select it and you are good. Okay, so let's say from my 3 hours of experience, it performs significantly better than Samsung and its once every 3-minute sound bump. With LG's version, well, When I first connected, I got a few blips in the first minute. I was crestfallen, I moped and thought, how dare they call this a feature? But after those first few minutes, it stopped and I was able to watch the entire movie bump-free. I even had other bump-free sessions after that. And this was streaming content, not physical media, which you might think would be less reliable. If there was a sound degradation, it was not that noticeable. Even in wireless mode, WOW Orchestra continues to perk up the sound as it does in wired mode. It's a fairly obvious, immediate, improved, charged up front sound when switching it on and off. If you have a 70 to 80 inch G series TV with the 60 watt 4.2 channel system, the augmentation will be even greater. I haven't used Samsung's wireless feature for a few months. Glad I didn't have it plugged in when the worst soundbar update of all time happened. I'll reassess during my Q990F review. Oh yeah, I never followed up on the WOW Orchestra music. It helps, in the way I described with cinema. It boosts the front soundstage, but it just kind of comes across as the wrong tool if you have other options you can lean on. It's not terrible, it's not a showcase.
I've been listening. Bought a bot to help me clean. Laser mop, domestic dream. Dishes washed, floor supreme. Thought I built a perfect team. Elon said, let me tweak. Firmware drop, futures bleak. Now my robots know kung fu. Bite lead. Roundhouse kicks tumble my dome. Can't relax in my own home. Dishwasher through a soapstone. Roomba traps me combat zone. Can't fight back, they're too precise. Dodging jabs like I'm stuck in ice. Elon laughed, said, oh that's nice. Now I'm stuck, gotta fight. Gotta fight, gotta fight.
Wrap up. The S95TR is in a tough spot because it shares a price range and market segment that overlaps near perfectly with the Q990 series and all the good stuff it seems we're going to get with the F. Samsung's Q900 bars are more grand and have their own higher flying WOW Orchestra, but it's not a total victory. I suspect WOW Orchestra and Blu-rays may not have been involved enough to put the S95TR in the most glamorous light in the, let's say, uneven initial reviews. Though it is reasonable for a customer buying a flagship product to expect some wow with just the bar and streaming content, which is the default way of doing things. Reasons to go for the TR. If you have a WOW Orchestra enabled LG TV, I think there are some really noticeable sound processing augmentations, and the added speakers from the TV offer a compelling sound that is qualitatively different and perhaps more appealing, at least to you, than Samsung. It's a bit more intimate, for better or worse, perhaps less likely to sound grating or come across as too prickly. I'd wager LG is less likely to annoy your prettier half. The sound object placement in WOW Orchestra mode, I think, is as good and often surpassed what I've heard from Samsung. I've never given Samsung stellar marks on this front, and I've used Q Symphony with Samsung on an 85-inch TV. I found the bar and TV controlling functionality of the Think app to be a real perk and something to consider if you have phobias of letting go of your Crackberry. So in particular, if you have an LG TV, it's not crazy to go with this little number over the Q990D and prior versions. I can't speak to the F quite yet. Okay, I've used up all my words. Please help me get over 50,000 subscribers. My wife is not nearly nervous enough about my accumulated fame and glamour, but 50,000 may change that. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.
I've been listening, I've been thinking there's no wow in orchestra. But when they both sing, do their thing, my movie sounds its best try.